Hello. This is the Reverend Guckenberger. Sometimes we might find ourselves suffering when there might not be a necessity for that. Do you ever have thoughts that emerge in your mind that cause you discomfort, but for some reason you just stay with those thoughts? When we have thoughts, we have lines of thinking. Maybe we should evaluate them. Do these thoughts, do these lines of thinking benefit me in some way or benefit the people around me in some way? Do they have a beneficial purpose? Well, if the answer is no, then why are we continuing to pursue those thoughts, those lines of thinking, those lines of thinkings, those? Why are we playing those mental games still? Is there a purpose? If they're not benefiting us, if the only thing they seem to be doing is to be causing us suffering, then wouldn't it be best, at least for the moment, to let those go? Because consider the fact that when it comes to thoughts that cause suffering, well, if there is a need for them, the subconscious can continue to deal with them, right? And everything else, we may come back when we have more information. And when we have more information, we might come to a much more positive or maybe multiple positive conclusions, right? So when you're thinking, ask yourself, are these thoughts benefiting me in some way? And if not, what are they doing? And if they're causing suffering, maybe it's time to just let them go for now. And some people may say, I can't do that. I don't know how. The only way to start really is to try, right? Let the thoughts go. And if you have no positive thoughts to put into place, just let your thoughts go and focus on what you're feeling, perhaps. You could focus on what you're feeling, and if what you're feeling is not good, maybe you can analyze why. Are your senses telling you something that's making you suffer? Is it too cold? Maybe you need to put gloves on. Is it too warm? Maybe you want to take your shirt off. Um, are your feet uncomfortable because the kind of socks you're wearing, or um, or the type of pants, are they making you feel incredibly uncomfortable because your belt is twisted in a strange way? Or maybe it's something else. Maybe you're hungry and that's causing you to suffer, right? Maybe um, maybe you're tired. Maybe you're too energetic, right? One might say. I don't know if you can be too energetic, but maybe you have a lot of energy. Um, and maybe it's important to go exercise so you can get some of that energy, put it to use. But sometimes it is important, I think, to let go of our thinking, our thoughts, our base thoughts, what we generally consider thoughts, not our higher thinking, which often doesn't manifest in human language and human words. But those fundamental human creations, those words that often bear very little meaning or significance, but often cause so much suffering. And even those feelings, we can analyze them in a similar way. Are they causing us to benefit? Well, maybe we can let go of those negative feelings. Overall, I think it's not necessary that we always feel good. But what we do feel, what we do think, and how we use our mind, I think it's very important that whatever it is, that it is in some way beneficial overall, right? And if we have thoughts, if we have feelings, if we have understandings, comprehensions that aren't serving a purpose, perhaps it is good to let go of those things, perhaps place them in the subconscious, let the subconscious deal with it for now, and perhaps revisit those things when we can assign meaning or benefit to them. But if those things aren't helping us right now, and especially if they're causing us to suffer, We don't always need to. I'm not saying we should never necessarily, but we don't always need to dwell on those things. There may be times when you think it is the right thing to do given the circumstances. But again, in that context, there might be a perceived benefit. But see, suffering without any potential benefit to yourself or to others, um, that's just suffering, and that's an unnecessary hell that a lot of people create for themselves. It's interesting that so many people are dreadfully afraid of the perceptions of hell that have been made and put forth by various religious and spiritual bodies, but people aren't afraid or concerned about, seemingly, about the hells that they create within their own minds. That actually reminds me, I believe that Rabbi Yeshua, Master Jesus, is reported to have said in the Gospel of Thomas, that the kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. Why not, when the time is appropriate and arises, why not create a paradise in the caverns of your soul? Now, I'm pointing to my head, but really what we are expands far beyond the mind, right? I mean, the nervous system, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless of the science behind it, when I say soul, I think a lot of us understand what I mean in that context, right? Or maybe not. And there is a sense of magical beauty in the world and magic, right? But if we want to find true joy, happiness, contentment, peace, any of those things, it's generally not a good idea to start outward. It's important to start inward, because even if we're the richest person in the world, we may live in a mental hell. To create true goodness within ourselves, we have to start within ourselves. Money cannot buy it. Money might be able to help. Access to resources doesn't always hurt, of course. But regardless of our circumstances, if we don't first start with our own hearts, how are we ever, no matter how much we climb in life, how much we progress or even regress, how are we going to find the things that we really want in terms of our own minds and hearts? And if we are able to find better equilibrium, better organization, better stability inward in our own selves, if we're able to make that for ourselves, wouldn't that be the way to extend things like joy, happiness, peace to others? Because if we don't have it within ourselves, how are we going to give it to anyone? I would love to give a random person $1 million, but if I don't have $1 million to give, how am I going to do that? In a similar fashion, if I don't have peace to give to others, how am I expected to express that to anyone else if I don't have it? If I'm not familiar with it? When it comes to true religious experience, or you might call it spiritual experience, I think it's important not to. I believe Samuel and Weor refer to them as parrots. And you can hear a message, read a message, and you can parrot it and just recite what you heard. But without that gnosis, that direct experience, how are you going to, with any substance, teach anything? You know what I mean? Well, some things to think about. Om Tat Sat.